Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show.
Cup of Joe Wrestling Show?
With Joey Harris. A podcast for the wrestling fan on the go. So take your favorite beverage of choice and join Joey as he takes a look at some of the biggest shows on the WWE Network.
Welcome to the Cup of Joe Wrestling Show. I am your host, Joey Harris, and we are broadcasting from makeshift studios in the shadow of South Central Virginia. You can follow the show on Twitter at Cup of Joe Pod. You can email the show at cupofjoewrestlingshow@gmail.com. To support the show, go to paypal.me/cupofjoepod. Folks, back here again. Went away this weekend, had a presentation that I did at a conference for student housing that went very well. I was very pleased with it, and it was good to get away for a while. I used to work at this university I was at and lived in the city. It was in Fayetteville, North Carolina. Lived in that city off and on for 13 years. And so I was taking my wife around and showing her the different sites, and it has just grown up so much since I was even last there. So it's always good to get away and to get back to visiting some of your old haunts, you know. But today we look at Hell in a Cell 2016 from the WWE. Hell in a Cell 2016 was a Raw-only pay-per-view that was shown on October the 30th, 2016 from the TD Garden in Boston, Massachusetts. There were 16,119 in attendance. We get our WWE intro and then a Hell in a Cell intro. Michael Cole, Byron Saxon, and Corey Graves are our announcers for the evening and welcome us to Hell in a Cell. Starting out hot, a cell match for the United States Championship. Roman Reigns versus Rusev with Lana. Lana out to introduce Rusev. The Spanish and German announce teams are introduced. Mixed reactions for both wrestlers. Reigns gets more cheers than boos. Interesting concept having 3 cell matches in one night. I guess they figure if they've got it, they will use it. The bell rings. They circle each other. Reigns with a series of shots. Rusev comes back. They trade blows. Rusev throws Reigns outside and follows him out. They get back in and Rusev attacks Reigns aggressively. Rusev thrown out, and as he gets back on the apron, Reigns runs and drives Rusev into the cell. Reigns keeps the attack up and throws Rusev into the cell repeatedly. Rusev rakes the eyes. Reigns runs Rusev shoulder first into the steps. Reigns looks under the ring, allowing Rusev to run Reigns into the cell. He then runs Reigns into the ring post and then into the cell again. He gets Reigns into the ring and gets a 2 count. They trade shots in the center of the ring. Corner whip gets a 1 count for Rusev. Rusev with a series of corner splashes. Rusev moves on the charge attempt. Reigns with a series of forearms and a clothesline to Rusev. Reigns sets up for the Superman punch. Rusev rolls out. Reigns comes out and sets up for the drive-by, and Rusev catches him with a clothesline to the chest. Rusev runs Reigns shoulder first into the ring steps, and then into the cell. He then grabs the ring steps. He hits Reigns with the steps. He does it again. Rusev brings Reigns and then the steps into the ring. He sets the steps on the top rope. Reigns blocks being run into the steps and throws Rusev out and into the cell. Rusev picks Reigns up and runs him into the cell. Rusev grabs a chair to the delight of the crowd. He takes way too much time, and Reigns grabs a kendo stick and hits Rusev with it. He hits Rusev repeatedly with the stick. He then throws Rusev back in. Rusev uses the ropes to low blow Reigns as he was trying to come back in. Rusev ties Reigns up in the ropes and beats him with the kendo stick. He breaks the stick. Reigns breaks out and hits the clothesline for a 2 count. They are back to trading shots in the center of the ring. They counter each other until Reigns hits a Superman punch for a close 2 count. Reigns sets up for a spear, but runs into a kick from Rusev, who then runs Reigns into the steps set up earlier. He gets a 2 count. Rusev gets the accolade on. Reigns trying to fight out. He fights out and goes for the spear again, only to get met with another kick to the temple from Rusev. Reigns falls out of the ring. Rusev grabs a chain from under the ring. Reigns grabs Rusev with the right hand and the chain goes flying. They get in the ring and Rusev grabs the chain and starts beating Reigns with it. Rusev rolls out again and grabs the other ring steps. He sets the steps up in the ring. He runs Reigns into the steps for another 2 count. Rusev puts Reigns on the steps. Rusev grabs the chain and puts the accolade on with the chain. Reigns fighting it. Reigns lifts up with Rusev on his shoulders, and Samoan drops Rusev on the steps. Reigns then spears Rusev off the steps to get the pin. The announcers talk about the last match and flash back to what has been happening between Seth Rollins and Kevin Owens. Tom Phillips interviews Kevin Owens. Owens says that on Raw, Rollins had him for 3 seconds, but he certainly wouldn't call Rollins the winner after being powerbombed on the apron. He's going to make that match between Roman Reigns and Rusev look like a cakewalk. This was a great interview by Owens. Bayley versus Dana Brooke. The international announce teams are introduced. They go back and forth. Brooke pushes Bayley down. Bayley throws Brooke into a turnbuckle. She gets a 2 count. She follows up with an arm drag. Brooke runs Bayley's arm into the turnbuckle. Brooke with a clothesline. She's going after the arm. She will tie the arm around the rope for a 4 count. Bayley trying to fight Brooke off. Brooke is relentless. Bayley kicks Brooke away. Brooke drives Bayley to the apron and drops the bad arm on the top rope. Bayley with left hand shots and back elbows. She follows it up with a clothesline. She hits a corkscrew elbow. Bayley hits the Bayley to belly to get the pin. We get a KFC commercial. Mick Foley and Stephanie McMahon talk about Survivor Series coming up. Chris Jericho approaches them and talks about the Survivor Series and tells them that he should be the co-captain of Team Raw with Kevin Owens. Jericho then puts Foley's name on the list. Enzo and Cass come out. They are extremely popular and do their routine. They go after the club. As always, it goes on way too long for me. Enzo and Big Cass versus the club, Carl Anderson and Luke Gallows. Enzo and Anderson start. Enzo with a crossbody. He gets Anderson in the corner and Cass tagged in. He beats Anderson down in the corner. Enzo tagged in and Cass throws him on both of his opponents and then launches him onto them on the outside. Gallows tagged in and Enzo brings him to the outside. Gallows clotheslines Enzo down. Gallows puts Enzo into the Tree of Woe and drop kicks him. He suplexes Enzo for a 2 count. Back and forth. Gallows with snake eyes. Anderson tagged in and gets a 2 count. Anderson puts Enzo on a turnbuckle and punches him. Enzo fighting back. He knocks Anderson off and hits a leaping DDT. Cass and Gallows both tagged in. Cass cleaning house. He splashes both members. Big slam to Gallows and then the Empire Elbow. Enzo tagged in. He punches Gallows, but Gallows knocks Enzo down. Magic Killer to Enzo and Gallows gets the pin. We get a Susan G. Komen ad and then a WWE 2K17 commercial. Hell in a Cell for the Universal Championship. Kevin Owens versus Seth Rollins. Flashback to what led up to the match. Owens out first and he gets a respectable reaction. He hesitates briefly before getting in. Rollins out to a great reaction and he is fired up. He takes it all in before getting into the cell. The bell rings and Owens immediately goes outside to look for a weapon. Rollins attacks Owens. They trade shots and Owens runs into the steel. Rollins runs Owens into the cell again. Back in, Rollins with a sling blade for a 1 count. Rollins chops Owens in the corner. Rollins kicks Owens down. Owens comes back with chops. Back and forth. Rollins rolls to the outside. He grabs a table. He sets it up on the outside. Owens with a corner whip and a senton to Rollins. Owens hits Rollins on the apron and then drives him into the cell. Owens tears the kinesio tape off of Rollins' back. Owens runs Rollins into the cell again. He throws Rollins back in and gets a 2 count. Owens stomps Rollins down for a 2 count. Rollins comes back. Owens launches Rollins into the cell from the ring to a big pop. He runs Rollins repeatedly into the cell. Owens with a corner clothesline in the ring and a running kick. He follows it up with a cannonball. He then takes Rollins outside and hits another cannonball into the cell. They each go for their signature moves back in the ring only for both to counter. Back and forth, and both men are down, and the crowd chants. Owens rolls to the outside. Owens grabs another table and wedges it over the first table between the ring and the cell. Rollins with a slam to Owens on the apron. Rollins follows it up with a suicide dive onto Owens. Owens grabs a fire extinguisher. He accidentally hits the referee with the spray. Another referee in to check on the original ref. He opens the cell and Chris Jericho comes down and gets in the cell and locks it, and Jericho has the key. Rollins hits Jericho on the apron and drives Jericho into the cell. Owens with a powerbomb for a 2 count. Owens goes up top, Rollins up, and they are fighting on the top turnbuckle. Owens pushed off and Rollins caught him with a glancing knee. Rollins goes for a pedigree on Owens. Jericho comes off the top rope, so Rollins hits him with the pedigree. Rollins counters a pop-up powerbomb attempt with an enziguri. Rollins goes for a powerbomb. Owens fighting it. Rollins powerbombs Owens through both tables. A holy shit chant goes out. Rollins rolls Owens back in and hits a frog splash on Owens. Jericho breaks up the count. He pulls the referee out. Rollins goes after Jericho. He runs Jericho into the ring steps. He throws him into the broken tables. Jericho backing off. Rollins powerbombs Jericho into the cell. Back in, Owens hits a super kick and a pop-up powerbomb for a 2 count. Owens doesn't believe it. Owens attacking Rollins with punches and headbutts. Jericho comes in with a chair. Owens attacks Rollins with the chair. Jericho grabs another chair, but as he comes in, Rollins gets the first chair and unloads on Owens and Jericho. Owens comes back and DDTs Rollins on the chair. Owens sets both chairs up and powerbombs Rollins through the chairs to get the pin. Jericho attacks Rollins and hits the code breaker on Rollins. Owens and Jericho then leave. Renee Young and the pay-per-view panel talk about what has happened so far. Flashback to what led up to the Cruiserweight Championship match. Cruiserweight Championship match. TJ Perkins versus the Brian Kendrick. They shake hands. The bell rings. They vie for position. They both have moves and counters. They trade moves. Kendrick with a roll-up for a 2 count. Perkins with an arm drag and a roll-up for a 2 count. Back and forth. Perkins with a crossbody. Kendrick knocks Perkins to the outside. Kendrick takes Perkins and tapes him to the apron with his own wrist tape. He attacks Perkins and gets a 2 count. Kendrick with a cravat locked on. Perkins comes back with a neck breaker. Perkins attacks Kendrick's knee. He follows it up with a drop kick that knocks Kendrick out of the ring. Perkins follows it up by launching himself onto Kendrick. Perkins throws Kendrick back in and hits a variety of suplexes on Kendrick. Perkins then goes up top, but Kendrick catches him with a drop kick as he was coming off. He gets a 2 count. Back and forth. Detonation kick for a 2 count. Kendrick with a cradle for a 2 count. They trade moves. Kendrick gets the captain's hook. Perkins forces the break. Perkins gets the knee bar, but Kendrick gets to the ropes. Kendrick goes for sliced bread number 2. Perkins pushes off, but Kendrick appears to hurt his knee. The referee checks on him. He suckers in Perkins and gets the captain's hook, and Perkins taps out. We have a new Cruiserweight champion. A WWE Network ad. Sheamus and Cesaro is shown in the back. They are trying to get along, but bicker. WWE Raw Tag Team Championship match. The New Day, Big E, and Xavier Woods with Kofi Kingston versus Cesaro and Sheamus. New Day out first and do their whole routine. The crowd loves it. Sheamus and Cesaro out, and they are annoying each other. Cesaro and Woods start, and Cesaro with a takedown. Back and forth. Woods with a dropkick for a 1 count. Woods out to the apron, and Sheamus knocks him off. Sheamus tagged in. He hits Woods with a series of forearms. Cesaro tagged back in. He gets a 2 count. Sheamus tags in. They both tag in while hitting Woods in the corner. Woods backslides Sheamus for a 2 count. Sheamus with a headlock. Woods trying to fight out. Sheamus hits the Irish Curse backbreaker and Cesaro tagged in. He gets a 2 count. Woods trying to come back. Big E and Sheamus both tagged in, and Big E hits some belly-to-belly suplexes. Back and forth. Big E with a big splash to Sheamus. Cesaro thrown outside, and Woods launches himself onto Cesaro. Big E gets a powerbomb on Sheamus for a 2 count. Sheamus with a slam for a 2 count. Woods tagged in and gets a crossbody. Sheamus rolls through for a 2 count. White Noise gets another 2 count for Sheamus. Cesaro tagged in. He gets a double boot to the gut of Woods to get a 2 count. He goes for the swing, but Woods gets to the ropes. Woods with a flying elbow for a 2 count. Cesaro with a series of uppercuts. Cesaro with the big swing. He gets a sharpshooter on, but Big E comes in and hits a belly-to-belly suplex to break it up. Big E tagged in. He gets Cesaro up. Woods tagged in. Sheamus knocks him off the turnbuckle. Sheamus goes to brogue kick Big E, but gets his partner instead. Big E clotheslines Sheamus to the outside. Woods crawls over and covers Cesaro, but Sheamus breaks up the count. Sheamus throws New Day out. Sheamus climbs up top and takes out the New Day on the outside. Cesaro and Woods in. Cesaro gets the sharpshooter on. Sheamus goes after Big E and hits him with Francesca too. Kingston hits Sheamus with Trouble in Paradise, but Woods taps. The referee says the New Day is disqualified because of what they did on the outside. New Day retains. A feature on Goldberg and Brock Lesnar, who will battle at Survivor Series. A feature on Hell in a Cell and the Women's Championship. Hell in a Cell match for the Raw Women's Championship. Sasha Banks versus Charlotte. Charlotte out first, and she is carried to the ring on the throne. A "We Want Sasha" chant goes out. Banks comes out in an Escalade. Banks extremely over being from Boston. They trash talk each other. The cage is lowered. Charlotte blindsides Banks before the cell finishes lowering. She throws Banks out, and they have to stop the cell from lowering so that Banks isn't hit by the cell. The referee and Charlotte come out. Charlotte runs Banks into the Spanish announce table. Banks comes back and throws Charlotte into the crowd. They fight out into the crowd. Banks throws Charlotte back to ringside and then takes the German announce table apart. Charlotte and Banks start to climb the cell. Charlotte knocked off. Charlotte grabs Banks and powerbombs Banks through the German announce table. Officials get Charlotte away and check on Banks. A "Let's Go Sasha" chant goes out. Banks hurt, but trying to get up. Charlotte antagonizing the crowd. Banks pushing referees away even as she collapses. They call for a stretcher. Charlotte gets in the ring and says, "Give me my title." They strap Banks onto the stretcher. They start to announce that Charlotte is the winner by forfeit, but Banks gets off the stretcher. Banks tells them to ring the bell. Banks runs Charlotte into the cage. She then beats Charlotte in the ring. Charlotte tries to escape the cell. Banks slaps Charlotte. Charlotte runs Banks into the ring post. Charlotte monkey flips Banks into the cell. Charlotte throws Banks back in and gets a 2 count. She gets a series of 2 counts. Banks comes back with the Banks statement. Charlotte lifts Banks up and throws her out of the ring. Charlotte follows Banks out. She throws Banks in and grabs a chair. Banks with a series of baseball slides and a suicide dive onto Charlotte. They try to run each other into the setup chair. Charlotte chops Banks into the corner. Banks comes back with shots. She drop toe holds Charlotte into the chair. Charlotte with a tilt-a-whirl to Banks on the chair for a 2 count. Charlotte stomps Banks. Back and forth in the corner. They fight outside. Banks climbs the cell and hits double knees to Charlotte. They trade shots. Banks hits several moves to Charlotte, who was up against the cell. Banks hits the 3 amigos on Charlotte back in the ring. She follows it up with a 5-star frog splash for a 2 count. Banks hits the Banks statement. Charlotte gets to the apron. They trade blows in the corner. Banks sets Charlotte and the chair on the ropes and comes down on Charlotte with double knees for a 2 count. Charlotte runs Banks face first into the ring steps. Charlotte sets up a table. She goes to suplex Banks onto the table, but Banks kicks Charlotte off and into the table. She gets a 2 count. Banks pulls out another table. Charlotte pushes the table into Banks to drive Banks into the cell. Charlotte sets up the table. They trade shots. Charlotte gets the figure 4 on. Banks gets a chair and hits Charlotte repeatedly with it. Charlotte with forearms to Banks. They go back and forth. Both wrestlers down. Charlotte counters a Banks statement with a series of backbreakers for a 2 count. Charlotte puts Banks on the table. Charlotte goes for a moonsault, but Banks up and attacks Charlotte. She goes to powerbomb Charlotte through the table, but collapses. Charlotte throws Banks onto the table and then hits natural selection to pin Banks and become the new champion. She's presented with the belt. Officials check on Banks as they sign off from Boston. Final thoughts. This was an interesting show. They certainly are building momentum headed towards Survivor Series. You can follow me on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram at TheJoeyHarris. If you like the show, please leave a review on iTunes, Apple Podcasts, or your preferred podcast app. I would really appreciate it. Thank you for joining me this week. This is Joey saying so long from the heart of Virginia.
The Cup of Joe Wrestling Show is a production of Baby Kangaroo Media.